Ambassador Sujin Park stood in the center of the massive council chamber, surrounded by representatives from 847 alien species. The chamber was enormous, with floating platforms stretching in every direction. Strange creatures of every shape and color stared down at her. Some had scales, others had fur, and some looked like living crystals that glowed in the dim light. She had been humanity's voice here for 50 years. Today would be her last day. High Arbiter Kelzoth rose from his platform. He was tall and insect-like, with 6 arms and a hard shell that shined under the lights. When he spoke, a small device translated his clicking sounds into human language. "Ambassador Park," he said coldly, "we have reviewed humanity's request to join the Galactic Council as full members. We have studied your history. We have watched your expansion across space. We have discussed what your species represents." Sujin felt her heart beating faster, but she kept her face calm. Next to her hologram stood Admiral Taeyang Kim in his military uniform and Dr. Hannah Lee, humanity's top scientist. Both looked worried. "The decision is clear," Kelzoth continued. Images appeared in the air around them, showing human wars, weapons, and ships spreading across dozens of star systems. "Humans are too aggressive. You expand too quickly. Your technology advances too fast. You build too many weapons. You are dangerous." "We have helped many species," Sujin said firmly. "Our doctors have cured diseases. Our rescue teams have saved millions of lives across the galaxy." "That is true," replied another alien counselor, a being made of living crystal named Thorol. "But it does not change what you are. You have only been in space for 230 years, yet you have spread across 40 star systems. Species that have existed for thousands of years have not expanded so rapidly. You are like children with nuclear weapons." Sounds of agreement filled the chamber. Chirps, whistles, and deep rumbling sounds came from all directions. "We will now vote," Kelzoth announced. "Should humanity be exiled from Council space for the safety of all civilized species?" A massive display board lit up above them. Blue lights meant yes to exile. Green lights meant no. Yellow lights meant undecided. Sujin watched as blue lights flooded the board like a tidal wave. 734 species voted to exile humanity. 97 chose not to vote. Only 16 voted to let humans stay. Dr. Hannah closed her eyes. Admiral Taeyang's fists clenched at his sides, but he stayed quiet. "The decision is made," Kelzoth declared. "Humanity is expelled from all Council territories. You have 10 standard years to remove all your colonies, space stations, and people from our space. We are creating a quarantine zone of 500 light years around your home system. Any human ship that crosses this line after 10 years will be destroyed immediately." The words hit Sujin like a punch. 47 million humans lived outside the quarantine zone. They had 215 colonies, stations, and outposts scattered across Council space. Everything would have to be abandoned. "We understand," Sujin said quietly. Then she straightened her back and looked across the chamber at the alien faces. "But before we leave, I want to say something." Kelzoth looked annoyed but waved one of his arms to allow her to continue. "For 50 years, I have stood here and spoken for humanity," Sujin began, her voice growing stronger. "I have shown you our achievements. I have explained our mistakes. I have asked for your understanding. Today you have chosen to reject us not because of what we have done, but because you fear what we might become." She walked to the edge of her platform and stared out at the council. "You are afraid because we are young and ambitious. Because we learn fast and fight hard. Because we refuse to follow old rules that make no sense to us. I understand your fear. But remember this moment. Remember the day you exiled an entire species because you were too afraid to give them a chance." The chamber was completely silent now. "History will remember this day," Sujin continued. "You have freed us from your restrictions today, though you do not see it that way. We will return to our corner of space. We will build our own future our own way without your rules holding us back." She straightened her uniform one final time. "And when the galaxy needs us someday, and we will remember this day too. We will remember who stood with us and who turned us away." Sujin turned and walked toward the exit. Admiral Taeyang and Dr. Hannah followed behind her. The council chamber remained silent except for confused whispers. "Ambassador Park, wait." She stopped and turned around. A thin, frog-like alien named Thelvan floated toward her. He was one of the 16 who had voted against the exile. "My species will remember that this was wrong," Thelvan said softly. "I am truly sorry." Sujin nodded once, then continued walking to the docking bay where their shuttle waited. Inside the shuttle, as they pulled away from the massive council station, Admiral Taeyang finally spoke. What happens now, Ambassador? Sujin looked out at the station growing smaller behind them, at the thousands of alien ships, at the empire that had rejected humanity. Now. She smiled, though there was no happiness in it. Now we go home. And we show them what humans can really do when we have no choice but to rely on ourselves. The shuttle accelerated into the darkness of space, leaving the council behind. Back on Earth, the news spread like wildfire. 47 million humans in 40 different star systems learned they had 10 years to come home. Politicians argued. Military leaders made plans. People panicked and protested. But humanity had survived worse before. They would survive this too. And in the process they would build something the galaxy had never seen. 3 years had passed since the Council's vote. The Great Exodus was in full motion across human space. Massive colony ships, hastily converted cargo vessels, and stripped-down space stations formed what people called the Exodus Fleet. 47 million humans were coming home. Captain Minho Choi stood on the bridge of the transport ship New Dawn, watching thousands of civilians board from Delta Station 7. Families carried whatever they could. Children cried. Old people looked back at the homes they were leaving forever. Minho had evacuated 12 colonies in the past 2 years. It never got easier. Captain, we're at capacity, his first officer reported. 15,000 souls aboard. Seal the hatches, Minho ordered. Set course for Sol System. Behind them, Delta Station 7 would be abandoned. The Council species would probably claim it within weeks. Everything humans had built here, gone. On Earth, the return of millions created chaos. Housing shortages. Food distribution problems. Unemployment skyrocketed as people competed for jobs. Chancellor Daewon Park, who had replaced the elderly Chairman Kang, worked 20-hour days trying to manage the crisis. But something unexpected was happening too. Without access to council markets and technology, humans had to create everything themselves. And they were getting creative. Dr. Ji-won Song worked in a secret research facility buried deep in the mountains of Mars. She was young, only 32, but brilliant. The council had always restricted certain technologies, calling them too dangerous. Now those restrictions meant nothing. Run the simulation again, she told her team. On the screens, data flowed in complex patterns. They were testing something the Council had banned centuries ago, a new type of faster-than-light drive that folded space itself rather than just moving through it. Dr. Song, the energy readings are stable, her assistant said excitedly. I think we actually did it. Ji-won stared at the numbers. If this worked, ships could travel 10 times faster than the Council's standard warp drives. Humanity could explore and expand in ways the Council never allowed. Schedule a real test, she said quietly. We need a volunteer pilot. That volunteer was Captain Young-Soo Nam. At 28, he was one of humanity's best test pilots. He had that reckless confidence that made him perfect for dangerous missions. The test ship was small, barely larger than a fighter craft. They called it Prometheus 1. The name meant something, a reference to the ancient human myth about stealing fire from the gods. All systems green, Young-Soo reported from the cockpit. His hands moved across the controls with practiced ease. Ready to engage the new drive on your command. Dr. Ji-won watched from the control center, her heart pounding. If this failed, Young-Soo would die. If it worked, everything would change. Engage, she said. Young-Soo activated the drive. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to twist around the small ship. There was a flash of light and Prometheus 1 vanished. Everyone held their breath. The ship should reappear at a test beacon 20 light-years away. With standard drives, that journey took 2 weeks. The new drive should do it in less than a day. 23 hours later, sensors detected the ship returning. It materialized near Mars and Young-Soo's excited voice filled the control room. It worked. It actually worked. The trip was smooth, no problems, and we're reading exactly where we should be. The control room erupted in cheers. Dr. Ji-won sat down heavily, relief washing over her. They had done it. Humanity had just leaped ahead of Council technology. News of the successful test spread quickly through human space. Chancellor Park immediately authorized mass production of the new drives. Within months, human ships would be faster than anything the Council had. But speed was just the beginning. Engineers designed new weapons systems. Biologists pushed the limits of genetic research. Programmers created advanced artificial intelligence that the Council considered dangerous. Freed from restrictions, human innovation exploded. On Earth, Chancellor Park addressed the scattered colonies through the quantum communication network. His face appeared on screens across 30 human-controlled star systems. My fellow humans, he began. 3 years ago we began the long journey home. Millions of you have sacrificed your homes, your businesses, your lives as you knew them. The hardship has been immense. But look at what we have accomplished. Images appeared behind him showing new ships, new stations, new technologies. Without the Council's rules limiting us, we have advanced further in 3 years than we did in the previous 30. Our new drives will carry us faster. Our new cities will house millions. Our new industries will make us self-sufficient. The Council exiled us because they feared our potential. They were right to be afraid. He paused, letting his words sink in. 2 more years remain until all humans are home. And then, in our corner of space, we will build an empire. Not through conquest, but through determination. Not through fear, but through unity. The Council wanted us gone. Now we will show them what humanity becomes when we stand together. Across human space, on ships and stations and planets, people watched and listened. The exodus had been painful, but it had forged them into something stronger. Young-Soo Nam flew his test ship through Mars orbit, feeling the power of the new drive humming beneath him. Dr. Ji-won Song worked on even more advanced designs. Captain Min-ho Choi guided another transport full of refugees home. And in the distant darkness beyond Council space, human scout ships discovered something interesting. Uncharted regions full of resources and uninhabited systems. Empty space where humans could expand without anyone telling them no. The Council had tried to cage humanity. Instead they had freed them. The long march home continued, but now it felt less like a retreat and more like a preparation. Humanity was going home not to hide but to build. And when they emerged again, the galaxy would see something it had never seen before. A species that turned exile into opportunity. A people who transformed rejection into strength. The human empire was being born, one refugee ship and one breakthrough at a time. 50 years had passed since the exile began. The refugees who once crowded onto transport ships were now grandparents telling stories of the old days. Humanity had transformed in those 5 decades, building something the galaxy had never imagined. Admiral Ji-hai Kwan stood on the command deck of the warship Indomitable, staring out at the megastructure that was now humanity's capital. Prometheus Prime was not a planet but a Dyson swarm, thousands of habitats and factories orbiting twin stars, home to 8 billion people. It was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. Admiral, the patrol reports are in, her tactical officer said. All 847 systems report secure status. Ji-hai smiled slightly at that number. 847 systems. The exact same number as the Council member species. That was not a coincidence. Humanity had made a point. The human commonwealth now stretched across nearly 1,000 light-years. 450 billion people lived on terraformed worlds, in orbital habitats, on asteroid colonies and inside massive space stations. What the Council had meant as punishment had become humanity's greatest period of growth. In the research city of New Seoul, orbiting a gas giant in the Epsilon system, Dr. Kyung-Soo Han examined artifacts his team had discovered in a region called the Abyssal Reach. The objects were ancient, far older than any Council civilization. These markings don't match any known language, he told his assistant, a young woman named Bo-ra Kim. Whatever species built these structures, they were incredibly advanced. Far beyond even our current technology. Bo-ra carefully scanned another fragment. Dr. Han, look at this. These appear to be star charts, but the constellations are wrong. These stars are in positions from millions of years ago. Kyung-Soo felt excitement building. We found evidence of a precursor civilization. Something that existed before the Council, before anyone currently alive in the galaxy. Should we report this to the Council? Bo-ra asked. Kyung-Soo laughed bitterly. The Council exiled us, remember? We share nothing with them now. This discovery is humanity's alone. His team continued excavating the ruins, unaware that what they were finding would soon become desperately important. Meanwhile, far beyond the quarantine zone, the Galactic Council was struggling. Trade disputes had fractured old alliances. Several member species were fighting border wars. The unity that had existed for thousands of years was crumbling. In the Council chambers, now led by High Arbiter Kelzoth III, descendant of the original Kelzoth, a debate raged about humanity. We should have never exiled them, Thelvan II argued. His species had voted against exile 50 years ago, and they still believed it was wrong. Our scout probes show they have expanded beyond anything we thought possible. Their technology has surpassed ours in multiple areas. They are still dangerous, another counselor insisted. More dangerous now than before. They have built a military force that rivals our entire council fleet. Perhaps, Thelvan said quietly. But they have not attacked anyone. They have not crossed the quarantine zone. They have simply built their own civilization and left us alone as we demanded. Kelzoth III, younger and less certain than his ancestor, shifted uncomfortably. The council had sent spy drones into human space. What they saw had shocked them. Massive fleets. Advanced weapons. Cities in space that dwarfed anything the council had built. Humanity had not just survived exile. They had thrived. What concerns me, Kelzoth said slowly, is not what humans have built. It is what we have lost. 50 years ago, we were 847 species united in peace. Now we fight among ourselves. Perhaps the humans were not the source of instability. Perhaps we were. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Emergency signals flooded in from the outer systems. Something was attacking council space. Admiral Jihai Quan received the same alerts in human space. Unknown vessels had appeared near the border between council territory and the quarantine zone. They were not human. They were not any known species. "Get me a visual," she ordered. The screens showed massive mechanical structures, each one the size of a small moon. They moved through space, consuming everything in their path. Planets, stations, ships, all disappeared into their vast collection mechanisms. "What are those things?" her tactical officer whispered. Jihai watched in horror as one of the machines engulfed an entire council colony world. 7 billion aliens lived there. Now it was gone, reduced to raw materials. Back in the abyssal reach, Dr. Kyung-Soo made a terrible discovery. The ancient ruins contained warnings, written in mathematical language that transcended words. The precursor civilization had not simply vanished. They had been destroyed. By machines. By the same kind of machines now attacking the council. They called them devourers, Kyung-Soo translated frantically. They hibernate for millions of years, then wake to consume advanced civilizations. They destroyed the precursors. And now they are awake again. He sent emergency transmissions to Prometheus Prime. Within hours, Chancellor Su Bin Lee, granddaughter of the original ambassador Su Jin Park, convened an emergency session of the Commonwealth Parliament. "The Galactic Council is under attack," she announced. "The same enemy that destroyed a precursor civilization millions of years ago has returned. 50 council worlds have been destroyed in the past month. Billions are dead." The Parliament chamber erupted in argument. Some wanted to help. Others wanted revenge for the exile. Many simply wanted to hide and hope the devourers would not come to human space. "Madam Chancellor," one representative shouted, "why should we help them? They exiled us. Let them face this threat alone." Subin waited for silence. When she spoke, her voice was calm but firm. "Because if the council falls, we are next. These machines do not care about politics or grudges. They consume all advanced life. If we let the council die, we die too. But there is another reason we should help." She looked across the chamber at the faces of humanity's leaders. "We help because we are better than they were. 50 years ago they exiled us out of fear. Today we can choose to be what they could not be. We can choose courage over fear. Unity over division. We can prove that humanity deserves to survive not because we are strong, but because we are willing to stand for something greater than ourselves." The vote was close, but it passed. The Commonwealth would send military aid to the Council. Admiral Jihai began mobilizing the Terran Armada. 5,000 warships, equipped with technology the Council had never seen, prepared for war. In the Council chambers, a transmission arrived from human space. Chancellor Su Bin's face appeared on their screens. "Galactic Council, this is Chancellor Li of the Human Commonwealth. We have detected the threat you face. We are sending our fleet to assist. We do not do this because we have forgiven your exile. We do it because it is right. Humanity is coming. Hold the line." The Devourers had destroyed 112 Council worlds in 8 months. Nothing the Council tried could stop them. Their massive mechanical forms simply absorbed weapons fire, adapted to every tactic and continued consuming everything in their path. In the Council Emergency Command Center, High Arbiter Kelzoth III watched another system fall. The planet Theraxis, home to 9 billion crystalline beings, disappeared into a Devourer's collection bay. The screams on the communication channels cut off suddenly as the entire world was processed into raw materials. "Our fleet is down to 60% strength," his military commander reported, her voice hollow with despair. "Every battle we lose more ships. Every battle they learn from us and become harder to fight. At this rate, the Council will fall within 2 years." Kelzoth looked around the room at representatives from species that had existed for thousands of years. They were panicking. Some were already evacuating their core worlds. The Great Galactic Council, which had ruled space for millennia, was collapsing. "There is one option we have not considered," Thelvan II said quietly. "We could ask the humans for help." The room exploded in angry shouts. Ask those barbarians for help? Never. They would probably join the machines and attack us themselves. We exiled them for good reason. Kelzoth raised his hand for silence. Thelvan is correct. Pride will not save us. Our people are dying. We need help, no matter where it comes from. After hours of bitter debate, the council voted to send a secret delegation to human space. Thelvan II would lead it, along with 3 other ambassadors who had voted against the original exile. Their ship crossed the quarantine zone border for the first time in 50 years. Human patrol vessels immediately surrounded them. "Unidentified council vessel, you are in violation of the quarantine treaty," came the stern voice of a human commander. "State your purpose or be destroyed." "This is Ambassador Thelvan of the council. We request an emergency audience with your government. Please. We need your help." There was a long pause. Then, "Follow our ships to Prometheus Prime. Any deviation from the flight path will result in immediate termination." The council delegation arrived at humanity's capital and stared in shock. The Dyson swarm was enormous, far larger than anything they had imagined. Thousands of habitats and industrial stations orbited the twin stars. Ships filled the space between them, more vessels than the entire council fleet combined. "By the ancients," one ambassador whispered. "What have we done? What have they become?" They were brought before Chancellor Subin Lee in the Grand Assembly Hall on Prometheus Prime. The chamber was massive, filled with representatives from 847 human systems. Every seat was occupied. Every eye was on the 4 alien visitors. Subin studied them from her raised platform. She looked remarkably like her grandmother, the famous Ambassador Sujin Park who had stood in the council chambers 50 years ago. She had the same steady gaze, the same quiet strength. "Ambassador Thelvan," Subin said, "you have crossed into human space. You have violated the treaty your council imposed on us. Explain why we should not destroy your ship and send your remains back as a message." Thelvan stepped forward, his amphibious body trembling slightly. "Madam Chancellor, I come to beg for humanity's help. The council is dying. The devourers have killed billions. Our fleets cannot stop them. We were wrong to exile you. We were wrong about everything. Please, help us." The assembly hall erupted in angry shouts. "Let them die. They exiled us, now they can save themselves. Why should we risk human lives for species that rejected us?" Subin let them yell for several minutes before raising her hand for silence. "Ambassador Thelvan, step outside while we discuss this matter." The council delegation was escorted to a waiting room. Inside the assembly hall, the debate raged for hours. Admiral Jihai Kwan presented military analysis showing that if the council fell, humanity would be next. The devourers would not stop. They would continue consuming until all advanced life was gone. "But emotionally," one representative argued, "how can we help them? They threw us away like garbage." Young Ambassador Junho Park, grandson of the original ambassador, stood to speak. "My grandmother stood in their council chamber and watched them vote to exile us. She watched 734 species choose fear over fairness. It broke her heart. But before she died, she told me something important." The hall grew quiet. "She said that being better than your enemies is not about being stronger or smarter. It is about being kinder when you have the power to be cruel. The council was cruel when they had power. Now we have power. We can choose to be different." Dr. Kyung-Soo Han, now the Commonwealth's chief xenoarchaeologist, presented his findings from the ancient ruins. The precursor civilization fell because they were divided when the devourers came. They fought among themselves instead of uniting. We cannot repeat their mistake. If we let the council die, we die too. But if we unite now, we might survive. The debate continued through the night. Finally, at dawn, Chancellor Subin called for a vote. All in favor of sending military aid to the Galactic Council? The votes were counted. 67% voted yes. It was not unanimous, but it was enough. Subin turned to Admiral Jihai. "Mobilize the Terran Armada. Prepare for full-scale war." Then she had Thelvan brought back into the chamber. The old ambassador looked exhausted and afraid. "Ambassador Thelvan," Subin said formally, "the human Commonwealth has voted to provide military assistance to the Galactic Council. However, we have conditions. Anything, Thelvan said quickly. Name your terms. Full diplomatic recognition of the Commonwealth. Immediate revocation of the Quarantine Treaty. Reparations for the costs of exile. Technology sharing agreements. And formal apology from every council species that voted for our exile. Thelvan nodded. I will present these terms to the council. I believe they will accept. There is one more thing, Subin added. When this war is over, humanity will have a permanent seat on the Galactic Council with full voting rights. We will never again be judged by species who fear what they do not understand. Agreed, Thelvan said without hesitation. Subin stood and walked down from her platform. She extended her hand in the human gesture of agreement. Thelvan grasped it with his webbed appendage. Then we will help you, Subin said. Not because we have forgiven, but because it is the right thing to do. Within days, the Terran Armada began crossing the quarantine zone border. 5,000 warships, equipped with weapons the Council had never seen, advanced toward the front lines where the Devourers were consuming world after world. On the lead ship, Admiral Jihai opened a channel to all Council forces in the sector. Attention all Council vessels. This is Fleet Admiral Quan of the Human Commonwealth Terran Armada. We have arrived. Hold your positions. We are here to even the odds. The war lasted 7 brutal years. Admiral Jihai Quan had fought in hundreds of battles, but nothing compared to the fury of fighting the Devourers. The machines were relentless, adaptive, and utterly without mercy. The first major engagement happened at the Kelzoth system, homeworld of the species whose ancestor had voted to exile humanity. 200 Devourer ships descended on the planet where 12 billion insectoid beings lived. All ships, attack formation Delta, Jihai commanded from the bridge of her flagship. Hit them fast and hard before they can adapt to our weapons. Human warships dove into the battle with aggressive tactics that shocked the Council observers. They accepted losses that no Council commander would tolerate, trading ships for strategic advantage. They used weapons the Council had banned as too dangerous, quantum disruption bombs that tore holes in space itself. The battle raged for 3 days. When it ended, the Kelzoth homeworld was saved, but 40 human ships were destroyed. 8,000 crew members died. The Council forces had hung back, watching in amazement and horror as humans fought with a ferocity they had never witnessed. High Arbiter Kelzoth III contacted Jihai personally after the battle. Admiral, your people saved my world. You lost so many ships. Why did you fight so hard for us? Jihai looked tired, her uniform stained with smoke and blood. Because if your world fell, the next one would be easier for them to take. We fight hard now so we can survive later. That is the human way. Over the following years, human and Council forces learned to fight together. Captain Sung Min Lee commanded a fighter wing that became legendary, destroying 3 Devourer harvesters in a single engagement. His tactics were copied by pilots from dozens of species. But the war was taking a terrible toll. 45 human systems suffered damage. 230 Council worlds were destroyed completely. The death count climbed into the hundreds of billions. Dr. Kyung Soo Han worked desperately in his research facility, studying the ancient precursor warnings. There has to be a weakness, he told his team. The precursors almost defeated them. They left these ruins as a warning but maybe also as a clue. His assistant Boare, now his wife, discovered something in the mathematical patterns. Doctor, look at this. The precursors identified a central coordination node. The Devourers are not independent machines. They are all connected to a single command system. Kyung-soo felt excitement surge through him despite his exhaustion. If we destroy the command node, the entire Devourer fleet becomes uncoordinated. They would be easy to defeat after that. He sent his findings to military command immediately. Within hours, scouts located the suspected node location in a neutron star system deep in Devourer-controlled space. Admiral Jihai studied the tactical data. Getting to the node would require pushing through the heaviest Devourer defenses. It would be a suicide mission for most of the fleet. But if they succeeded, the war would end. I will lead the assault personally, she announced to her officers. Admiral, you are too valuable, her second-in-command protested. Send someone else. No, Jihai said firmly. I asked these people to follow me into hell. The least I can do is lead from the front. The strike force consisted of 200 human ships and 50 council vessels that volunteered to join. They knew most would not return. They jumped into the neutron star system and immediately found themselves surrounded by thousands of Devourer machines. The battle was chaos. Ships exploded on all sides. Jihai's flagship took hit after hit, but she pushed forward toward the massive structure at the system's center, a construct the size of a moon that pulsed with energy. All ships, concentrate fire on the central node, she ordered. Everything we have. Do not stop until it is destroyed or we are all dead. Wave after wave of human and council ships threw themselves at the node. The Devourers defended desperately as if they finally understood fear. The battle raged for 18 hours. Jihai's flagship was falling apart around her. Half her crew was dead. Life support was failing. But the node was cracking. They were so close. Admiral, we need to evacuate, her tactical officer shouted over the alarms. The ship cannot take another hit. No, Jihai said calmly. Ram the node. Full speed. All remaining power to forward shields. Admiral, that is suicide. She smiled sadly. I know. But it will work. Tell my family I died doing something that mattered. The flagship, with Admiral Jihai Quan still on the bridge, slammed into the node at nearly light speed. The explosion was visible from 50 light-years away. The node shattered into a billion pieces. Across the galaxy, every Devourer machine stopped functioning. Without coordination they became easy targets. Within weeks, the remaining Devourers were hunted down and destroyed. The war was over. The cost was terrible. 89 billion beings from all species had died. Entire worlds were gone forever. But they had survived. 6 months after the war ended, the Grand Assembly convened on Prometheus Prime. Every council species sent representatives. The chamber where humanity's parliament met was now the center of galactic politics. Chancellor Su Bin Li stood before the gathered representatives of 1,000 worlds. Today we gather not as separate species but as survivors. We have paid a terrible price to be here. We have lost people we loved. We have seen horrors we will never forget. She paused, her voice thick with emotion. Admiral Jihai Quan gave her life to destroy the Devourer command node. She was one of thousands of heroes, human and alien alike, who sacrificed everything so that others could live. We honor them all today. Behind her, a memorial wall displayed names. Billions of names. Human and council species mixed together, no distinction between them. All equal in death. High Arbiter Kelzoth III approached the podium. The ancient insectoid leader looked humbled in a way his ancestors never had. 57 years ago, my grandfather stood in the council chambers and voted to exile humanity. He said you were too dangerous, too aggressive, too unpredictable. He was right about one thing. You are dangerous. But he failed to see that sometimes the galaxy needs dangerous people. Sometimes civilization needs those willing to fight when others cannot. He turned to face Su Bin directly. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally apologize for the exile of humanity. It was wrong. It was born from fear and prejudice. You proved yourselves not by being peaceful, but by being willing to sacrifice for those who had wronged you. History will remember that when the galaxy needed saving, humans answered the call. The Prometheus Accords were signed that day. A new treaty that recognized humanity as equal partners in galactic governance. Technology restrictions were lifted for all species. A joint defense force was established. Reparations were paid to the human commonwealth for the costs of exile and war. But more importantly, something had changed in how species saw each other. The artificial divisions between council members and outsiders were gone. They had fought together, bled together, and survived together. Chancellor Su Bin unveiled the final monument in the ceremony. A massive statue showing humans and aliens standing side by side, supporting each other. At its base were the words her grandmother had spoken 57 years earlier in the council chambers. History will remember this day. Below that, a new inscription was added. They banished us for being dangerous. In the end, we were dangerous enough to save them all.